The NRA spends a considerable amount of its resources in influencing our lawmakers in order to prevent them from passing or even proposing gun legislation. Anything that would limit the sales of gun manufacturers here in the United States is what the NRA is against. And so just how much money do our lawmakers receive from the NRA? Well, we have some specific examples, and we'll start with the Senate. Now, these are the top 10 recipients of NRA lobbying money, and the numbers are insane. So let's start with John McCain from Arizona, of course, the senator. He has received $7,740,000 from the NRA, which is incredible. Then you have Richard Burr. He is the second largest recipient from the NRA in the Senate, almost $7 million as well. Then you have Roy Blunt at $4.5 million. Tom Tillis at $4.4 million. The list goes on and on. Senator Cory Gardner at $3.8 million, almost 3.9. And just look at that list and consider the fact that John McCain, who is the top recipient, just recently went on and on about how we need to get money out of politics. Maybe because he knows from firsthand experience that money's real sweet when you're a lawmaker, and it will prevent you from proposing or voting in favor of common sense regulation that would ban something like the bump stock that the shooter used in this Las Vegas mass shooting. By the way, a number of these lawmakers have said they didn't even know that the bump stock existed. I don't know if bump stock existed, right? Dianne Feinstein proposed legislation in January of 2013 asking for a ban of bump stocks. There were other measures in that legislation that would limit the sale of some guns, and it would also include background checks, things like that. And it didn't even come up for a vote. Okay, so I don't know, maybe, they never read the legislation anyway, so maybe they're right. Maybe they didn't actually read and know about bump stocks, but it's just hard for me to believe that.
If it was important enough, it would have been in the lecture and they wouldn't have had to do all the reading. If they just came to class, listened to the arguments, it would have been in that. I like there's, the New York Times has this breakdown and they go with the number that people are donated or received from the NRA, and then their tweet response. And what's interesting is there is a correlation. If you are getting over about $1 million, you'll be tweeting about thoughts and prayers. You get the thought and prayer package. Under $1 million, you get thoughts or prayers. You might get.
That's crazy.
You might just get thoughts. NRA, kick it up a little bit. We'll get to the prayer level.
Well, someone's thoughts will definitely make these victims feel better.
They're all thoughts, that hoe over there, bang, nailed it. Here's the other thing is, the money's going no matter what. That's the John McCain thing. I don't want to wrap my mind around him as a person. I can't really reconcile all that's happening into one person. But I will say the money's gonna go to somewhere. And that's how they talk themselves into it, if there is any moral qualm about it.
No, they talk themselves into it the same way that Hillary Clinton talked herself into it during this past election. And this is not an issue that solely impacts Republicans. This is an issue that impacts every single member of Congress. And honestly, I have only found, I wouldn't even say a handful, like 2 senators that are not influenced by corporate money and are principled in their beliefs, which I respect. Bernie Sanders being one of them, of course, right? But look, Hillary Clinton and her supporters made the argument over and over again that, you gotta do this to win. You gotta do this to win. You have no other choice. This is just how the system is. No, but if you see that this system is corrupt and it's problematic, you're one of the most powerful people. Like you could be a leader in this issue and change it. But they like this system. They don't want to stir the pot, right?
It's so easy. It goes back to the story we were talking about where it's like the market already has bump stocks. It's gonna be too much of a pain in the ass to get rid of them. Why would I change it? But it is that fear that everybody's replaceable. Not to turn the gun debate into an episode of Dance Moms, but that's what Abby Lee Miller says, is that everyone's replaceable. So the NRA is going to fund someone if you turn against them.
It is interesting though, because I think most Americans feel this need to do something that makes them feel like they have a purpose that fulfills them. And so how is it fulfilling in any way to be a lawmaker if you don't get to carry out, your vision of a better country, where someone else, the wealthiest people in the country, have complete power over you and the decisions you make? I don't want that.
Well, their just definition of a good country is different from yours. They have it. They nailed it. They're doing it. So you're putting onto them your ideal of America, and I am more inclined to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But if you're saying like,
no, I'm not even. By the way, to be clear, I'm not even talking about my specific progressive ideals. I'm just talking about let's be specific. So this whole gun debate, right? Over like the Newtown massacre. After that happened, all those little kids were murdered.
Right.
That they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. And it's because the lobby is so incredibly powerful. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, what the NRA does, and you'll notice it after every single one of these, is they shelter in place. Because they know how it works, because they've done their lead work to get the Republican politicians and the members of like Fox News to go ahead and say, anyone who says now's the time to talk about changing things is politicizing this. And so the NRA just gets to back off and be like, all right, whatever. Because without them having to do any additional work, already NRA membership goes up.
You're right.
Because already people are afraid, because they know that in the wake of all of this, people on the Democratic side are gonna say, what the Democrats say.
Can we please do something about this?
Well, we're not going to cover it on today's show, but what Hannity sat down with Tommy Lahren and said is that why are they politicizing this? The bodies aren't even cold.
Why do they politicize?
But it's not. It's not
right.
That's what it is. It's not politicizing anything. How is it political to say, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Versus, let's not change. Let's do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And what's so frustrating about the Hannity thing is that he says, I'm all for common sense gun legislation. And that's it. That's all any of us are for. That's all most of the people are for. And it's frustrating to hear folks say that this is now in a discussion over getting rid of all guns in America, period. Because it never is.
It never was.
It's not fair to the conversation. And that's politicizing it.
If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.